What has been the scariest moment of your life?
Bugs. When I went to a haunted house. When I got stuck in the elevator. When I went in a haunted house. Losing my dogs in the cemetery.
My sister was sleep-talking on a Halloween night and saying trick-or-treating is scary.
When my grandpa passed away.
Riding on a cruise.
When I had my kidney operation.
When 2 raccoons tried to come in through my window.
I got lost in a shopping mall when I was 5.
My brother and I went out with our god siblings and we witnessed a shooting.
When my sister got in a car accident.
When my uncle got in his motorcycle accident.
A car accident.
When I was a freshman, I got kicked out of the hospital in the middle of the night, and I did not have a ride home, and I could barely walk.
Almost losing my father.
Seeing a rat jump on the train platform.
Moving to New York City.
My first time rock climbing.
When my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer.
When oxygen masks fell on an airplane. That was not my favorite.
When I found out my mother had cancer.
Meeting my little brother for the first time.
I had an abnormal pap smear and had to get a biopsy.
When I see water bugs.
I had a pulmonary embolism about 10 years ago.
Moving to New York City without a job or an apartment.
My brother was in a car accident and we had no idea what happened.
This, being on camera, I've never done this before. My mother's gonna see this.
Quitting my full-time job to pursue my dreams.
I went whitewater rafting when I was about 13.
Being diagnosed with panic disorder.
I had a bad car accident.
I hit a moose going 85 miles an hour in Maine.
Finding out that my daughter was in a relationship where domestic violence was occurring had to be the scariest thing ever.
I woke up paralyzed with fear in the middle of the night, like this weird presence was in my room. I was like 12.
When my mother was dying in front of me and I had to give her CPR.
Leaving a relationship, a marriage.
When I had an asthma attack.
I was hanging over a cliff in a car in a muddy, muddy hill in Vietnam. And it felt like I was going to die right then and there.
Getting divorced and starting a new chapter.
When my mother had an aneurysm and everyone told me that she was going to die, but she made it through.
Going to rehab and giving birth to my first child.
When my loved ones have been at risk and I haven't been able to help them.
When my daughter was choking on a pretzel and turning blue.
My son was hospitalized with an unknown disease.
When I went ziplining, like 300 feet above the tree line.
Living through the 1989 earthquake in San Francisco.
When I got the diagnosis that I had cancer.
I got hit by a bus.
Landing in a private plane in Cartagena in the 80s in the midst of guerrilla warfare.
Moving from upstate New York back to Queens, New York.
A car accident when I was younger.
When I flew in a C-130 while I was performing for the troops, and we were flying into Iraq during the war.
Splitting up with my husband of 16 years.
When I went into labor with my son and received a cesarean section.
The World Trade Center bombing.
I was robbed at gunpoint at work. Terrifying.
That had to be watching my mother take her last breath.
When I got up one morning to wake up my son from school and realized he hadn't come home the night before.
Taking a DNA sample from a serial killer.
I almost dropped an air conditioner out of a window, held onto it by the cord.
When my son was a toddler, he fell out of a stroller.
I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer last year.
Knowing that I was about to undergo heart surgery.
Coming down a hill on a bicycle that would not stop.
I walked into the house and I realized that someone was there and the house was robbed.
When I was diagnosed with esophageal cancer, when 2 other doctors had said there was absolutely nothing there.
About 50 years ago, I was driving, I hit a patch of ice, and I lost control.
Going into labor with my first child, I was 22.